are you? Thank you so much for choosing CAS TV. This is The Conversation. My name is Chemtai Kiri. I'm hoping you're well wherever it is you're watching us from. It's been an eventful Tuesday. Today, the government welcomed the state visit from the President of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan. Here today, she's in the country for I think 2 days visit. Quite an amazing moment for us as women and of course all the genders. It's a beautiful thing when we see women taking those positions and doing well at that. Something else that has happened today is that CAS Media Group has been looking at that report there and what it means for the relationship between Tanzania and Kenya and of course Uganda, right? Welcome to The Conversation. Tonight, I'm privileged to be sitting down with the Conservation Alliance of Kenya CEO, Steve ITELA, here tonight to talk to us about how we are going to have the development in our country, even as you are keeping in mind the issue of environmental protection. And on your screen there, you're seeing elephant or avocado, but indeed that is just a euphemism on the development activities of us humans, with keeping in mind how we are going to balance that with environment protection. And of course, he's here tonight to talk to us about that, among other things. Karibu sana Steve kwa studio.
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Chemtai.
It's a privilege to have you here. The last time we had a conversation was via Zoom, thanks to technology. And at that time, I think it was a bit late last year, there was this case happening in court which we could talk about. And that is the case of conservation versus development in Amboseli, right?
Yes.
And I felt like now that there's a ruling there, although the case is still ongoing, it would be a good time for you to come here and just look at not necessarily what is happening in Amboseli, but all the other human activities that me and you are involved with, which are going to affect the environment. Yeah, Karibu sana.
Okay.
First of all, maybe you can even start with the ruling by NEMA.
Yes.
And revoking the license of Kiliavo, right? And what that means for the conservationists.
Thank you very much for having me here. Actually, I am free to talk about the court case because the tribunal dismissed the case, and I will shortly explain to you the reasons why the tribunal dismissed the case. It's been a long journey, particularly with this case, because it started with the EIA report. Yeah. And conservation organizations and communities raised some pertinent issues about the location of this avocado farm. Unfortunately, those comments were ignored, and eventually they went ahead and got an EIA license. And so once we learned that they have the EIA license, we then appealed to NEMA to review the process that was followed. And it is at that point that NEMA issued a show cause letter to the proponent, that is Kiliavo Fresh, to show cause why the license should not be terminated. And at that point, they then moved to the Environment Tribunal to stop NEMA from executing that decision. Yeah. And so it was actually Kiliavo case, it was not our case. Okay. So we got into we got into court as interested parties to try and secure this space for wildlife. And so eventually, the matter took about seven months at the tribunal, but Kiliavo continued to till the land and to develop the land. So as we speak right now, Kiliavo actually have planted avocados on the ground. I don't have the exact acreage, but they have actually done that. And the reason why the case was thrown was merely because the proponent, which is Kiliavo Fresh, did not produce the witnesses and did not produce the witnesses to the court, all right? Because now the court was ready now to go straight onto the hearing, and they did not produce. And the court, the lawyer of NEMA looked at it like it was wasting court's time, and that's why then the lawyer applied to the tribunal to actually dismiss the matter, because the tribunal handles lots of environmental issues, and that's how the case was dismissed. So for us, we are still not celebrating, but we are still waiting to see what the next move by Kiliavo would be. Yeah, so as it stands right now, Kiliavo cannot continue with the project on the ground because NEMA has actually revoked the license. Yeah, so the only option left for them is for them now to prepare another EIA license, another EIA report, present it to NEMA, and if it meets the criteria that is set, then NEMA would give them a license to continue with work. So it's a waste of effort for Kiliavo at the moment, seeing all that huge investment go to waste. Yeah.
There's so much issues that arises, Steve, when you're talking about that case or in the land tussle, right? And later on, we're going to probably touch on it just a little bit, because when you're talking about issues of license, when you're talking about which activities can be developed where and why, right? And also creating the awareness of being sensitive to our ecosystem, right? And that's why when I heard about this case, I knew there's a lot of questions that comes from that, right? 1 minute we want to make money, or we want to exist in a place where it's fertile, but in expense of what, right? And that's something that keeps arising still. Where do we draw the line between I want to make money and I want to succeed in my businesses, especially farming, which is coming. We're going to talk about the green gold, right, and the rush to that, vis-a-vis affecting the environment, which later it's going to punish us, right? Because if we don't have water, if we don't have good air, where are we going to land in?
Yeah. You are absolutely right, because every Kenyan, every citizen is actually looking for a business to do and is looking for space to survive. And unfortunately, some of them do not, look at the risks that they are taking in that kind of investment. So if I'm to use this example, Kiliavo did not undertake what we call a risk assessment in terms of understanding what are the possible risks of this investment that they are doing in the area. And I would explain one thing that is very important for any business person, particularly now that the entire globe is shifting onto what we call sustainable businesses. And what is sustainable businesses? Sustainable businesses is drawn from the fact that the ecosystem provide services and goods that are beneficial to all global economies. If you look at the debate on CBD, which is happening this week, which is a convention on biological diversity, convention that protects that, everything is on sustainable. Kenya recently launched what we call the blue economy strategy, and they also launched what we call the green economy strategy. So we are no longer talking about conservation and environment as two different things, but we are talking about them as one. So even us in the sector of wildlife, we're also realigning ourselves with the green strategy that our country has adopted, and those in the marine resource and the fisheries are realigning themselves with the blue economy. Now, what are all these strategies about? The strategies are about sustainability, that as you extract benefits from the ecosystem, that you are extracting them so scientifically that you don't over-exploit and over-extract, so that then you run out of business within a very short time.
True.
So it's actually a model of trying to make businesses last for a long period of time. And many businesses actually are extracting water resources from the same ecosystem that we are conserving. Yeah. They are also extracting clean air from the same ecosystem that we are conserving. And failure to protect the ecosystem services, particularly water and clean air, which is actually enshrined in our constitution, that every Kenyan has a right to clean and healthy environment. Yeah. If those two are not sustained in the various business models that we are going to come, that we are talking about, there are two things that are going to happen, Chemtai. Health costs are going to increase. And no wonder we are seeing in Kenya diseases that were never there becoming very common, like cancers. They have become very common now. And we need to go back and ask ourselves, are we protecting the environment well enough to make our people safe from these other diseases? The other next thing is the respiratory diseases. We are seeing an increase in respiratory diseases because our air is becoming overpolluted. All right? We are cutting down so many trees, and trees do play that function of cleaning the air. Trees take in carbon dioxide, and they give us oxygen, which we need to breathe in. Yeah. So the green spaces we have, even in urban cities, are being cut down left and center. You look at Nairobi Express Highway. Why did we make noise about cutting trees along Wayaki? It's because of that. Green spaces, they are very important. In every developed city, in their plan, there is always a plan for green spaces where trees are grown, and that's where people then go for recreational activities, and that's where people go for jogging, and it is those spaces that actually clean our air. So it's very important that we actually ensure that if we are getting into business, we are getting into sustainable businesses. And I can tell you, many businesses right now are also trying to realign themselves with sustainability and are coming up with what we call sustainability policy. Allow me to mention a few. Safaricom does have a sustainability policy. And if you follow the footprint of Safaricom, you will actually find that they are investing more on the environment because they are also extracting from the environment. And so they have made it as part of their business that in everything they do, they are tracking everything to sustainability. KCB is following, KCB, Commercial Bank of Africa, Commercial Bank of Kenya, is actually also following suit. Yeah. So sustainability, if I just use those three as an example, and I know there are several others that are actually looking at that, that's the model that each and every business should ask itself. What's my footprint on the environment? And how am I plowing back into that environment? Yeah. Now, when we go back to the various strategies that I talked about, in Kenya right now, we have the environmental policy, then we have the forest policy, then now we're also coming up now with the Bamboo Act.
Before
and
we
a strategy.
Go to that part, yeah, just a follow-up on the sustainability bit as team. Most of us, when we hear about green economy or sustainability, unless it affects us directly, you feel like, that's a problem for whoever is dealing with it, right? How then am I going to look at how I'm going to be affected if I'm not being including the sustainability concept in my businesses, right? Am I going to see a place where maybe I've invested in modern farming? I have this land where, for instance, right now we're talking about avocado, let me just say that, right? But it's not in alignment with some of the policies, not only within the country, because most of these agricultural activities are intended for exporting, right? Am I going to see some effect out there where probably some international companies won't want to be associated with my business?
That is actually true. In fact, we have seen a trend, particularly for agri-businesses here in Kenya, that are depending on the export market outside Kenya. If you come to the horticulture sector, it's the same. There are certain standards that you are supposed to adhere to before they give you the green light to actually export your products to those countries. And in Europe, Asia, even China also has certain standards. Like I'm told that China has certain standards for you to take, to export Hass avocado to them. All right? Yeah. So at times, you know, if they say we want it in this quantity and in this color when they are still green, that's how you present it. That's how you actually export it. Now, complying with those standards is very critical in those countries. Yeah. Now, if you fail, then we in civil society have an option of punishing you, all right? Because those countries require that whatever produce they are getting, it's actually sustainable. Yeah. And that your activities are not harming or degrading the ecosystem where you're operating in. And we've seen quite a number of farms and a number of businesses in Kenya being blocked from exporting their produce to those countries because they have not either complied with human rights issues, the way you treat your staff, the way you take care of them, the way you handle your business. You know, are you investing also in the same services that you are benefiting from? If you are not, then those countries will then sanction your products and tell you, until you address 1, 2, 3 things, we are unable to buy the products from you. So when we talk about sustainable businesses, that's exactly what it means. That even me as a consumer, I would like to know the kind of clothes that I'm putting on, where has it come from? Yeah. Is it from a sustainable source? Unfortunately, this sustainable business is driven from the first world countries but it's not driven from the countries that actually supply it. And I would like to see Kenya one day, I would like to see the Consumer Rights Federation in Kenya actually emphasize on sustainable businesses as a way of encouraging even upcoming entrepreneurs to think about the environment in terms of what is my footprint in the environment. Is it positive or is it negative? If it is negative, what can I do to improve on it? Now, Kenya Airways also has a sustainability policy. Yeah. And they say every time you get onto a flight, there's pollution on the environment, and that's going to affect climate, that's actually going to enhance climate change. So Kenya Airways has not said they will shut down, but they're saying we'll continue flying, but at the same time, we are also going to do something about the pollution that we are contributing. Yeah. And that's why they're coming up with the tree and reforestation programs. And all airlines across the globe are actually investing in Africa, because Africa is actually the hub of conservation.
True.
Yeah.
Forestry is something that we need to look at, especially when you're talking about clean air and all that. We're going to look at that in a short while, Steve. But what I'm getting from you is that I need to take a personal initiative when I'm thinking of developing as a business person or as a whatever activity I'm going through, right? Especially for my intention is to succeed in that field, right?
Yes, you need to undertake and really understand. Like, for example, I'll give you examples. Some time back, there was a tourism facility that had built itself on a wildebeest migration path. Now, I don't know which one came first, whether it's the hotel that came or the wildebeest were there, but whichever the case, you know, it's not sustainable for you as a tour operator to put up a hotel where animals are moving in, and that's the attraction. Yeah. Number two, if you are a tour operator, it's not good for you to dispose your waste into the river system, because there are other mammals and other animals that are actually relying on that. And above all, there are people also downstream that are also depending on that water resource. So for you as a tour operator, you need to look at your water. How are you recycling your water? You need to look at your heating systems. How are they? Are they sustainable? Now we have what we call solar heating system. So rather than you heating using firewood because you are going to cut a tree or you are going to wait for a dead tree somewhere, collect it, and then put it. Now we need to begin to move, all right, from heating water with firewood to actually eco technologies. And then finally also in terms of how you recycle waste, it shouldn't just be thrown anyhowly. In fact, in Kenya right now, or in Nairobi right now, the reason why baboons are coming to the areas where we are, it's because, you know, we are so careless with our waste, and that's why they are there. The reason why vultures are even in the city of Nairobi, it's because we've got waste, and that waste is actually food for vultures. Yeah. Unfortunately, we Kenyans do not understand that vultures are actually supporting Nairobi County keep our city clean, because they eat onto the waste. So the more we have all these waste dumping sites, Dandora, Rua, near Nairobi, I can tell you, it is not cutting down of acacia trees that is going to keep the vultures away, all right? It is how we manage our waste and how we close this dump site that is going to take the vultures back to where they belong. Yeah.
I hear you. Steve, I'm told we need to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to continue the discussion.
Okay.
I'm speaking to the CEO of Conservation Alliance of Kenya, Steve ITELA, who is here today to talk to us about how we can balance development and ensure that we're protecting our environment at the same time. We'll be back shortly.